Tyler, are you ready for? Good afternoon. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. I'm Steve Wicks, and I'm honored to serve as your president this year. And I see Jim Harvey with your hand up. Am I not loud enough? Okay, I need to be louder. And then if we could close the doors in the back of the room. Please silence your electronic devices. On this day in history, October 21st, 1959, the Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, opened in New York City. And Sally Gaskell will share today's reflection.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, everybody. Last month, I spent a week in the Deep South with 3 college friends, Colorado College, class of 1976. We met to experience part of the Civil Rights Trail. How many of you have done anything in or around the Civil Rights Trail? Jeff and Lynn and Jim and others, Tracy. So the trail actually runs all the way from Washington, D.C. to Kansas. So we chose 2 states to focus on our trip, and that was Georgia and Alabama. So we all arrived in Atlanta. My friends were from Colorado and Pennsylvania. We went to the King Center, which was founded by Coretta Scott King after Martin's death. Next door is the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where his father and his grandfather were pastors. We also went to the High Museum of Art, which is not technically on the trail, but it's an art museum with a large collection of work by Black artists. Then after a couple of days, we drove to Birmingham, Alabama, and went to the 16th Street Baptist Church. That's where the 4 girls were killed by a bomb in 1963. And there's a notable civil rights museum across the street. We went to Selma with the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and there's the National Historic Trail between Selma and Montgomery that commemorates that walk for justice. And we spent the most time in Montgomery, which is the home of the Equal Justice Initiative, the EJI, which has opened since 2018, 3 really powerful public spaces. First is the Legacy Museum, which covers the history from the origins of slavery in West Africa to mass incarceration of Black people in this country. It's one of the most astonishing museums I've ever been to. There is the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, a large outdoor tribute to the victims of lynchings throughout the South. And the Freedom Monument Sculpture Park, which opened just 1.5 years ago, it's 17 acres of stunning art by Black artists about the Black existence in the United States. Brian Stevenson is the founder and director of the EJI. You may know him from his memoir and the film Just Mercy. He's a lawyer who has, for many years, been helping individuals who have been wrongly incarcerated in the South. His vision has really transformed Montgomery into a global destination for reckoning with our racial past. The EJI does not accept any federal funding, which of course is a godsend for them at this moment in our history. And by the way, the ticket for all 3 of those spaces in Montgomery run by the EJI is $5. I have for some time felt that I carry a particularly heavy burden in that my ancestors on both sides of my mother's family were slave owners. The Messick family, who came from Holland, enslaved 100 people in upstate New York in the 1750s prior to the American Revolution. New York, by the way, did not abolish slavery until 1827. And then the Vaughns, who came from England early on, were slave owners in Virginia and Mississippi. And my great-great-grandfather became a general for the Confederate Army in the Civil War. Books have been written about him. And frankly, growing up, my forebears, and actually my contemporaries, my cousins, have a sense of pride about him, whereas I feel guilt and anguish. So my friends and I talked about what we might do as a result of our week on the Civil Rights Trail. What action can we take as a result of what we learned? We'll be convening in a few weeks on Zoom to discuss Martin Luther King's book, Stride Toward Freedom, about the march from Selma to Montgomery. And we talked about sharing our experiences with others, which I'm doing right now, thanks to Rotary. My personal list of things includes work that I've been doing for several years in my hometown of Weston, Missouri, 500 miles due west of here. It was a slave-owning town, and my work honors the history and resilience of the town's formerly enslaved residents. And in addition to that, all of us in this room, we could all support the NAACP here in Bloomington. I'll be at the gala on November 1st. I hope to see you there. And we can support our club's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I heard an interview with Ken Burns yesterday where he said he uses the term e pluribus unum, one out of many, to represent DEI. And finally, I encourage you to consider visiting some or all of the Civil Rights Trail. And I especially recommend Montgomery, which is about 500 miles due south of Bloomington. Because as Brian Stevenson says, this is not the time to remain silent.
Thank you, Sally. Tracy Ivanovich will share our guests for today.
Thank you, President Steve. We have two distinguished guests today. First, Daniel Schlegel from the History Center, if you could stand. Thank you. And then Hannah Powell from Ivy Tech, the new development director. And do we have anyone online?
We do not today.
Okay, thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
If you have the interest in learning more about Rotary, just ask anyone at your table or see me afterwards.
So we have 3 birthdays to recognize. Mike Wade has a birthday today. Charlotte Zitlow also has a birthday today. And David Wright has a birthday on the 26th. Anniversaries on the 23rd, Bill Murphy, 18 years with our club, 46 years total in Rotary. Also on the 23rd, honorary member and past president Tom Boone, 42 years with our club. On the 24th, Club, Fellowship, Family, and Fun co-chair Andrea Murray, 2 years. Also on the 24th, Charles Pierce with 2 years. Announcements. The Scholarship Committee will have a meeting here in the Frangipani Room immediately after this meeting. The annual Rotary Toast is sold out. Yeah. Good job, Tracy. Sally already mentioned the local NAACP Freedom Fund Banquet, Ivy Tech, November 1st. Save the date for the club holiday party, December 11th at the Bloomington Country Club. On your tables, you'll see announcement, Sibling City Virtual Town Hall, scheduled for October 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. Topic is polarization. What should we do about it? And you should have received an email invitation from Alan. If you have questions, Alan is here somewhere. He's actually speaking to someone in the back, and he can answer questions. Chamber of Commerce, business after hours, 5:30 to 7:30 on the 23rd at Stonecroft Health Campus, 363 South Fieldstone Boulevard. Since the club is a Rotary member, then individual club members are eligible to attend the function. Bloomington Rotary Club Foundation inviting nonprofit organizations in Bloomington and Monroe County to apply for grant funding totaling $10,000 to support projects that will have a lasting impact on the local community. The deadline to submit proposals, November 5th. Please share this with interested community members. The actual link hopefully will be printed in this week's roundabout. Club member, Boys and Girls Club, expanding its tutoring program for children in kindergarten to 12th grade. They are looking for tutors to join a structured and fun weekly program intended to build both confidence and joy in learning for kids in need. All materials are provided. If you'd like to help, see Kristen Bateman at the Boys and Girls Club. This link hopefully will be in this week's roundabout. Charlotte Zitlow is home from the hospital and she has entered hospice care. So please don't hesitate to send her a card to let her know you're thinking about her. Alan has sent several emails on this subject, but the Maytan family is still looking for a home. Please see him for more information. FutureCast coming up, the annual joint effort between our Rotary Club and the Chamber of Commerce, scheduled for Tuesday, November 4th, 11:15 a.m. to 1 p.m., be held at Ivy Tech Shreve Hall. The link to sign up is on our club Facebook page. I'll try to get it in the roundabout. Cost for club members is $25. This is on Tuesday, November 4th. We will not have a club meeting that day. Finally, the last thing, and we generally don't have a real formal ceremony for this, but I'd like to welcome our new transfer member, Ellen Stroman. Ellen, can you stand or wave your arm?
Rotary has always been in the art of the heart. And so I am so thankful to be part of your group. So thank you. And I used to visit once in a while, because I lived in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, too. And then I belonged here in one of the other Rotary groups. So thank you for being so welcoming.
So as Ellen mentioned, she's a transfer member from the Oconomowoc, Wisconsin Rotary Club. She served as a director there for many years. Ellen and her husband owned and operated the Culligan water dealership there for many years. Retired in Bloomington, Ellen currently lives in Beltrace. In 2007, Ellen and her daughter Linda, a Jacobs professor, established the John Mack Memorial Scholarship in Oboe, which is awarded each year to deserving Jacobs School of Music oboe students. And if you go to a performance at our hall, chances are you will see Ellen there. So welcome. Now it's time for the Mystery Rotarian. Remember, I'll give a clue. If you know the answer, put up your hand. Don't shout out the answer. If you're online, put up your hand electronically. And here is the first clue. Originally from Muncie, this Rotarian arrived in Bloomington as a freshman in the summer of 1975 and soon met the one in an IU program for first-generation college students. They graduated and married 4 years later and chose to stay in Bloomington. Put up your hand if you know the answer. I see one hand in the back. Okay, next clue. One of multiple club members who have held or still hold local elective office. This Rotarian served 6 years on the Bloomington City Council, including a term as council president. I see a few more hands. Okay. Final clue. Club member for over 5 years, this Rotarian is a Paul Harris Fellow and a club director. Last call. All right. Lots of hands. And the answer is Jim Sims. And Jim is not here in the room. Is he online today?
He is not.
Ah, darn it. Okay. Sarah Laughlin, I saw you put up your hand first. Did you get it right? Good for you. Couple of pictures of Jim. This is a picture of a young Jim Sims and his wife Doris. And then on the bottom right, a picture from a couple of years ago with Jim at a city council meeting. Jim's a retired IU facility manager currently serves as president of the Monroe County NAAC branch, served on numerous local boards and commissions, and I just picked out a few: Board of Public Safety, the Plan Commission, Board of Housing Quality Appeals. And then in the club level, the NAACP is an institutional member or an organizational member, and Jim is their lead representative. And then several years ago, Jim and his wife Doris established the Kamisha Sims Memorial Nursing Scholarship in honor of their daughter, and that's something they did at the Community Foundation. So anyway, I can tell you from the board level, Jim is an active director, gives good advice, really reasoned advice, and I value having him on the board and part of our club. Rotary International, the usual slide, 7 areas of focus. And remember, October is Economic and Community Development Month. But one more thing, this Friday, the 24th, is World Polio Day. And we'll see just a very short video talking about that.
Right now, at this very moment, there's a movement happening. See, Rotary sparked an idea that was once unthinkable, ridding the world of a horrible disease, polio. A global community of scientists, advocates, governments, and health workers, people all doing their part to beat the unbeatable, track the untraceable, reach the unreachable. And it's all happening right now, people. This part of history belongs to everybody, so tell everybody, near, far, young, and old, that it will take everybody. Because legacies aren't forged overnight. Making history isn't instant. In the decades since Rotary and its partners started this journey, billions of children have been protected from polio. But we still have work to do. And this part's on us. All of us. Part-time, full-time, full stop. Right now, no breaks, no indifference. You and me. Because polio isn't unstoppable. We are. Together, we end polio.
A couple of notes. First of all, this week is also the birth date of Dr. Jonas Salk, with the polio vaccine. And we have one club member who's a polio survivor. Judy Witt, if you want to just put your hand up. And so, yes. I think we have a few minutes for happy dollars. Is anyone happy about anything this morning?
I just wanted to thank the club for the cards and letters of support in the last few months. 6 months ago, I was not very mobile, and it was because of a problem I was having. But today I'm not very mobile because I'm just lazy. So it's good to be back, and it's good to be lazy. Thank you very much.
In honor of my surrogate mother's 91st birthday, I give $91. And please join me in celebrating our beloved Charlotte today.
I always like to use this opportunity to give an update to the club's Afghan friends. I'm giving $20 today as an odd celebration of the fact that Amina's husband Jawed, who is an asylum seeker in the U.S. and has his application pending, his first legal appointment, his first court date was scheduled for next month and has been put off for an entire year. And I am celebrating with $20 the fact that he is not going to be seen by the judiciary for another year, the immigration judiciary.
I'm proud to donate $20 in support of Teachers Warehouse. I am sad that my alma mater has apparently chosen to pull the plug on free speech in many ways, but I am happy to see the outpouring of support. So thank you all.
Is there any online?
Nope, none online today.
Well, here's a couple of. I'm happy because we're getting really close to having a vaccine for peanut allergies. My son is working on the final stages of the program, and they're doing a double-blind study or something, but only one person has had a reaction to the vaccine, one out of many. So they don't know if it's to the vaccine or to a placebo, but that's good news. And hopefully not only will be a vaccine for peanut allergy, but a vaccine for all food allergies. That's what they're working for. So it's getting close.
I have a gift for you for just being a survivor.
Thank you all. Now Lynn Schwisper will introduce our speaker today.
Well, hello, everyone. One of my great personal joys is the theater. I find myself in front of sitting at a stage more often than most people, and I am transported every time. The Jewish Theater Bloomington is a small but mighty theater company, and one of the things that amazes me is every time I go to a play there, I cannot believe how good, how professional, and how they just keep going and delivering the goods to this community. I recently got to know Darrell Ann Stone, and she has a year ago, January, it'll be a year, taken over the leadership of Jewish Theater Bloomington. So she is officially the producing artistic director. She's from Boston and has made Bloomington home for many decades. She recently retired from IU as director of the Office of Student Advocates Office and associate faculty in School of Social Work. I'm amazed to tell you that Darrell attended Ted Williams' last baseball game at Fenway Park. As the baseball lover that you know me to be, I was completely blown away and just wow. Her mother took her out of kindergarten in 1960 so that she could be a witness to this historic event. Wow. She does have a very unique name, and it turns out that her grandfather was named Beverly, which is also quite unique. So she really comes from a very, very interesting family. So I cannot wait to hear Darrell's presentation today. So let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Darrell Ann Stone from Jewish Theater.
One year ago today, I stood on this very stage at this podium to a full audience who were there for my retirement ceremony from Indiana University. I worked here for 26 years. I was blessed to have a beautiful office upstairs for 20 of them. So I love this building. 3 months later, in January of 2025, I began anew. I worked again as producing artistic director of Jewish Theater Bloomington, replacing the revered and much loved Audrey Heller, who'd been its co-founder and at the helm from the beginning. Theater was my first career, actually. It's a path that I have always professionally continued part-time as a freelance actor and director for many decades while working full-time professionally in social work and higher education. Apparently, life has a way of pulling us full circle over and over again. Jewish Theater Bloomington began 20 years ago. This is our anniversary. It started in 2005. By Audrey Heller and a woman named Bacol Geller. They rhyme. Both were very actively immersed in theater most of their lives. And locally, Audrey, she created diversity theater, Mosaic Film Festival. She worked with puppet players and many other things as well. She and Bacol were interested in starting a Jewish theater that held its historical importance, but were passionate about its theatrical promise and their Jewish identity. Not too long after its inception, Bacol and her husband made a decision to move to Israel. And at that point, the two, Bacol and Audrey, approached me and said, would you like to join Jewish theater and replace Bacol? And I'll be honest, I had never once thought of anything in that direction. I was busy working and doing freelance. And I thought, well, sure, I think I need to think about that and try it. So I did. And I loved it because I loved working with Audrey and I really was passionate about the mission. And I was able to, I need to switch this for a second here. I was able to understand the beginnings of a theater and I love growing things. So it made a lot of sense. So we started and got the 501c3 application. We started the first board of directors and got them trained. And we did staged readings to start, where you hold the script and you kind of walk around and that's about it. Within a few years, we did full productions. So not long after its inception, there was a mission statement created. It is the same mission statement that we have to this day. And I'll have you look at it here a little bit. Let me pull out a couple of pieces of it. We are committed to the culture, the Jewish culture in theater, and that we really focus on the universal issues of the human condition as much of what it's like to be Jewish as an experience in the modern world. Our goal is to have a diverse audience and bring non-Jewish people and Jewish people together. And we're actually really successful at that because we have sold out houses and not everyone is Jewish by any means. Let me pull out a couple of defining factors and maybe dispel some myths that you may have come in with. We are not religious. We are not part of the synagogue. We certainly are associated with it by members and donors and so forth, but we're not religious. We are cultural. We actually are also not political. We don't take stands, we don't talk politics. We are a theater company, first and foremost, that produces works that highlight Jewish culture as well as the humanity that we share and all that we have in common, which is why I think our plays are so compelling, because you see yourself in them and you see humanity in them. The other thing I want to make sure we understand is one does not have to be Jewish to be involved with Jewish theater. And a lot of people are surprised at that. In fact, let me define, most of our actors, directors, and our backstage tech people, and a good portion of our board directors are not Jewish. They're doing this good work because they love the mission and the work that they're doing. Our audiences are not all Jewish. Of course, we don't poll them, but we often sell out. We have a donor list of people who are Jewish and not Jewish. And if we look at the general United States Census, it's important to note that it's only 2.4 of the population that's actually Jewish. So to have sold out houses over and over again of just one identity just wouldn't even be possible. Let me look a little bit at the history of Jewish theater. I'm going to kind of assume many people don't know it. It didn't start with Bacol and with Audrey. It's actually an international genre. It dates back hundreds of years. It's a vibrant form of entertainment. It used to be in the 1800s, mid-1800s in Eastern Europe, in Berlin and Moscow and Poland. And then by the 20th century, it was very active in London and Sweden and Buenos Aires and then America. Today, 107 years later, the National Yiddish Theater in New York City is still functioning. That's kind of amazing. That's why it's important for us to do it, to continue legacy and to carry on. And I will note for anybody who knows anything about acting, there are two teachers. One I had to study as an undergrad with Stella Adler. The other is Lee Strasberg. They got their start in Yiddish theater. So it holds a history. In Bloomington, there's a lot of theater, but there's only one Jewish theater in the entire state of Indiana. Wow, right? We are connected, though, by the Alliance for Jewish Theater, AJT, which connects all of them around the country and a good portion of the world. There are hundreds of Jewish theaters around the country, and you may not know that, but they're mostly in cities, a lot of cities across the country, and we connect with each other through AJT. I go to their workshops. Audrey and I went to a conference years ago in Boston. We use them as resources. We contact each other. I was talking to them last week with a question. So we're united by this community that is bigger than us and that is longer than all of us. Let's pause 2005 to 2025. How many of you have been here longer than 2005? All right, here's the question for you. How many theaters were there in Bloomington in 2005? How many? Five. Somebody thinks? What else? Two. Let's go to what I think is factual. Maybe I didn't do all my research, but I think it's pretty true. In 2005, there was the Bloomington's Playwrights Project, which my husband and I were involved with from the very beginning, the first boards, the first actor directors. Bloomington Playwrights Project, Monroe County Civic Theater, right? And IU Theater, of course, which back then also had Brown County Playhouse. And then Jewish Theater of Bloomington started, right? So that's not many. A year later, 2006, Cardinal Stage began. Stages Bloomington began. And none of us have had our own space. If you're not part of the Waldron, we have to rent and be able to get rehearsal space and all of that. 20 years later, I want to list this because I think it's important. 20 years later, we have Constellation Stage and Screen, which is three things in one, Off Night Productions, Eclipse Productions, Monroe County Civic Theater, Stages Bloomington, Resilience Production, and a few new ones, After the Storm, Fourth Wall, and Sparklight Stage. That's 9 other theaters plus us, that's 10. So we have 15, 16. But in 20 years, what we all know is our city has grown up and out. So if we broaden our theater experiences to include our county neighbors, we need to include Bedford Little Theater, Mary Mack Players in Martinsville, Brown County Playhouse, Owen County Theater, and Shawnee Summer Theater of Greene County. Wow, how lucky are we, right? That's a lot of why we live here, because we love all of this, right? There are some challenges. I'm an optimist, so I don't like to talk about challenges. I like to flip it, but we have to be honest, okay? So we're all applying for grants together. We're looking for that free rehearsal space together. We're trying to rent dates from one location usually together. And our audiences, I think it's hard for you all because then you have so many things to choose from and you have to pick and choose and it gets hard. The flip, the positive, is really where I land, and I love the collaborative nature of this. So the theater community now, oh, hello, that's okay, oh, okay. The collaborative nature of this is wonderful. We work with all the other theaters, and we're very, very involved. We have 3 paid staff, and we pay a stipend to all of our artists. And producing plays takes a lot. You have to have a sound person, a lighting person, a set builder, a set designer, prop master, intimacy coordinator, photographer, graphic designer. I think I missed somebody, but that's what it takes before you even see the actors on stage. That's what the budget is. We also hire Actors Equity, the professional actors union. Occasionally, we can afford one professional actor because they include health insurance and workman's comp and all the things that they need. And we work with Chicago. I have to get my contracts out of Chicago, a paymaster in Minneapolis, and send the final contract to New York City. But we do that. The upcoming production we have has 2 because one of them got sponsored by someone who donated. So I was able to afford 2. So producing theater doesn't happen alone, not for Jewish theater. It's kind of like the ultimate group project you had in college, okay, except it's the real deal. It takes more than an artistic director and a board of directors. And we also don't have a space, so we have to find, to this day, 20 years later, we started in Audrey's house, my house. We have to find rehearsal space for free. Hopefully someone donates, and then rent the venue. But we couldn't afford to rent for 3-5 weeks at a time at a venue. So we have to find those. So that gets challenging for all the theaters I listed, except Constellation and IU Theater. I am proud that from the beginning, Jewish Theater has worked as a collaborative with all the other companies at the time. And let me just share some of that. We were with, let me see if I have some of these to show. This is our board. I'll talk about them in a second. We were with Stages Bloomington. We did a musical, Brundabar. We did another musical, 13. We were with Cardinal Stage. We did a show about the Civil War together. BPP, we did a production together. Eclipse Productions, I just went in and did a dialect coach for their show because they needed a Boston accent. And we're talking about something else together. Off Night Productions, Monroe County Theater, we're sharing professional tech people back and forth. Constellation is amazing, helping us to be successful with their venue and to be able to work with them on anything we need. And lastly, IU Theater and Drama and Dance. We have been collaborative partners from the beginning. Audrey nurtured that, and I have continued it. They help us all the time. Our current production, the director is former chair of the theater department and acting faculty. My sound designer is Dr. Hobson. He's faculty in theater department, MFA lighting design student. And one of our lead actresses is an equity actress who's an MFA grad in acting at IU. So lots of theater connections. This is our board. How cool are they? They're doing so much work. They serve one of 6 committees, sometimes more. They are going ahead and, how want to get this over here real quickly? We have many, many committees, and they're working on them with finance, development, publicity, hiring committee, strategic planning committee, and a play reading committee. They help with all the fundraisers. They help, they get the annual retreat and an annual report. We recycled, that's her term, we recycled Audrey Heller. We were smart, we kept her. She is our new play managing manager. So she is the one who receives the plays with me, and then she brings them to her play committee. We receive them all over, all the time, every month, from all over the country, all over the world. Playwrights write us, agents send us plays. She's seeking out plays from AJT. What are other theaters doing? What's going on Broadway, off Broadway, London? She's reading the New York Times. She's looking at podcasts. She's doing her homework. And then she brings us final examples, and then we all make a decision. They have a form they fill out. The play committee is very thorough, and we make our final decision for 2 per year, May and November. And then we do fundraisers in between. You may remember this fundraiser, anybody who was there. We were sold out. It was almost standing room. This was a couple of years ago. Some very famous people, well known that you know, were storytellers. So we did a storytelling thing as a fundraiser. Sylvia McNair, Krista DeTore, Gladys Devane, Malcolm Douglas, Francesca Sobrare, Richard Fish, and Malcolm Abrams. They told their own stories at the microphone. They were fabulous. And it was really, really great. There were some other shows. I just chose a couple because we have 20 years of photographs. So what's interesting about this one on the left, these 3 actors are in the current play, The Price. They've performed many years ago. This is like 2012 together, and they're back. And then on the right, you may recognize Ken Farrell. He's a famous actor in Bloomington and regionally. He was in one of the first productions of Hair in Boston back in the day, 50-something years ago. That's him in another production of ours. This is an MFA student in the Orange Prisoner thing. He was so powerful in a play years ago. And on the right is another one. Just some samples. You can get our webpage and look at the history of all of our shows. This is when we collaborated with Stages Children's Theater, did Brundabar, the opera. On the right was the Talkback. That was Dr. Roseman from the Jewish Studies program, and the late Pat Gleason, who ran Stages, who was amazing. This is an example of taking a staged reading and then making it a full production. We did Collected Stories by Donald Margulies. I directed that many years ago, way back at the beginning, when the Waldron was nothing like you know it to be now. Nothing. And we just had, like, a friend was my stage manager, and somebody else said, sure, let's find some costumes. Then years later, I think this was 2015, I directed it as a full production at the Waldron. It was fabulous. This is special because we also do local playwrights when appropriate. How many of you may have known or know of Greg Dawson? Yes, Greg Dawson worked for the Herald Times here in Bloomington, is a writer, was a newspaper writer, moved to Boston, wrote there, wrote the Orlando Sentinel in Florida. He wrote this book, Hiding in the Spotlight, about his mother, revealing she had survived the Holocaust with her sister, and no one in the family knew. It's an amazing story. So I read it cover to cover, and I called him because I've known him for many years. And I called him and said, we need to do this as a theater thing with Jewish theater. So this is way back, I don't know what year, 2011, I think. We worked for a year. His wife ended up doing the play, writing that with him. And we produced it and put it on at the Unitarian Universalist Church because Jana, the lead woman who's there, the blonde in the back, she had been inspired by church music. And she remembered walking in as a child. So I just staged the whole thing in there. It was a community production. It was professional actors, community actors, and children, because it's a big cast. And then I creatively cast Amy, the woman in the front, is Greg's daughter. This is Candy and Greg, and that's their daughter, Amy. I cast her as her grandmother as a young child because I knew Amy because she was friends with my daughter. So like, it's who you know. It was so powerful, and we worked with the Jacobs School of Music at the time. We found a piano prodigy, and she played the piano as a young child in character. And then at the end, we had Jana there. She played the Chopin piece at the end, and there was not a dry eye anywhere. She has since passed away. I can't say enough about this story. Never mind Jewish theater. Read Hiding in the Spotlight. It is a beautiful story. Another local one, Marcia Sobolska. I don't know if anybody remembers Marcia. She lived here in Bloomington for many years. I was in her children's theater company years ago. She wrote a play called Visions of Right, and we did that, and that was fun to bring her in. And during the pandemic, y'all remember the pandemic, right? We were all at home. Well, theater was desperately trying to be active. So we went and we produced 5 plays during the pandemic on Zoom. Never done that before in my life. I had taught online, didn't like it much, but I did it. So we threw ourselves into it, and I worked with some Constellation, actually Cardinal Stage at the time, tech people to make this work. I had one actor living in Michigan in her parents' home. The other actor was in Bloomington, and we staged things, and I have to use my hands because that's what I do. We staged things so that, the squares on Zoom, right? So there they are. And they looked like they had a table between them for real as characters, the grandfather and the granddaughter. And one would hand one a glass and the other would hand one a piece of paper. And you couldn't tell they weren't in the same room. That took so much work. But we had so much fun doing it. So we were active during this. And again, I was working full-time here at the university at the same time. We are supported by you all. We are supported by donations, sponsors, grants. We are a 501c3. Generally speaking, ticket sales are only 20 to 30% of anybody's operating fund. If you're 50%, you're a pretty well-off theater. Our production budgets alone per play are $25,000 per play. So all of that is donations and a little bit of ticket sales. We this year are very excited to say we received grants from Psi Iota Xi, Indiana Arts Commission, which is part of National Endowment of Arts, City of Bloomington, Constellation Open Stages grants. And next year we start our pitch for long-term sustainable donors to be able to keep us into the future. Let me just keep going here. We do talkbacks. They're a huge part of our mission because we're about the education of bringing us together and understanding it. And they are typically well received and well attended. I facilitate them. Sometimes I have a guest speaker and sometimes I do not, but we're the actors, director, and the audience asking questions, which gets me close to you asking me questions, right? Let me just also end with upcoming. We are going to be doing The Price. We did this a long time ago. We did this in the spring. We did Groucho. I'll just show you this. It was amazing. Sold out, 4 sold out shows. Frank Ferrante out of Los Angeles came in this summer. He was amazing. That helped pay for The Price, which is here, which is in a couple of weeks. I urge you, we've already sold 122 tickets and we started rehearsals last Monday. They haven't even really gotten into it. This is next year. Pretend you didn't see the November one because I haven't officially received the license from them yet. So I can't go very public with it, but it's exciting. to look at why it's Jewish. The first one is about an AI caretaker taking care of an elderly woman, and we're pulling out the Jewish themes of values, morals, and ethics, how it challenges that. AI is pretty interesting. Being directed by Martha Jacobs and starring Diane Condrat, for any of you who know her. And in November, Prayer for the French Republic by Josh Harmon. You didn't hear me say that. It's going to be a stage reading because it has 12 actors. And now we're you, but let me just end with one final thing. And that is, I'm trained as a social worker and an actor, and I often tell people they're not really any different. One is about real people and one is about fake people, but they're all about how people behave with each other and analyzing that and learning the theories and how we interact and learn and grow. Theater is a beautiful medium because it's about us. So I hope that I get to see you at another one. And now I want to hear from you. So help me learn your questions. Lynn.
Thank you so much, Darrell. How do you choose your plays every year?
So Audrey, like I was saying, she's looking around, we all are, but Audrey's the main person. She's looking at all the different sources of Jewish theaters around the country and the world. What are they producing? And then she's looking at Broadway, off Broadway. She's reading all the theater sites in New York and in London and reading the New York Times and getting ideas. And then she asks for those plays, she orders them, we pay for them and they get sent to us. Or people send us examples and say, here, read this play. So she'll get them, read them. There's 3 of us that read all of them. And then it goes to the play selection committee. They read it, they write out their forms and discuss it. Eventually we get down to about 4 and we choose 2. And so it takes a year. I've been working on the structure of getting us into seasons again, which you'll notice we have now. So we chose them this year by the end of July so that we could get our season announced now for next year. And I will always be a year ahead. We kind of got off sync because of the pandemic, frankly. It was a little hard. Good question. Did that help? That's great. Thank you. Who else? Yes, sir.
Darrell Ann, thank you so much for that presentation and for the insights into Jewish theater and community theater. How blessed we are, all of us, to be living in Bloomington, Indiana. But I think your talk raises a question: how much theater is enough? And have we or will we surpass that line where it might be too much and only the strong survive?
Well, I think you're bringing up a question about physics. So it is the strongest survive for sure. I would never judge and come up with an answer personally, my own answer, because I also know that in the creative world, in the heart and soul of an artist and a creative person, we need the arts. Let's be serious. Personally, we really need them now. We need to get outside ourselves and look at things. So if more and more creative people are creating things to help us do that, more power to them. Do they last? I don't know how long they last, but let them have their moment. I don't know the answer. I do know and feel strongly that growth is really important. That's what makes us change. It's also what helps us evolve. It's uncomfortable and it's hard. I think we're watching this happen with the sizes of all the apartment buildings and what we have here and the university changing and growing. So I think there's bits and pieces. We'll find our way with it. I know as a professional that it also takes keen coordination. So we have to come together as theater companies and respect that it's so hard for you all. And we have to say what's enough and what's not, and how do we work on seasons and work together to make it work more efficiently, perhaps. But I don't really know. I just know that I came here in 1976 and I, sort of in my own prejudice thought it was a cow town. I'd never seen such a small place in my life. I was from Boston. I was like, there was Bloomington Playwrights Project wasn't even here yet. And to think who we are now, that's why I stayed. And I love it here. And I've retired from IU here. I'm still working. So it's a great question. I don't know if you have other answers, but I wouldn't put a kibosh on growth. But I do know that by physics, some survive and some don't. And that's part of what business is. It's a great question. Who else? Thank you.
Yeah, while we're waiting for a question, I just have, what is your dream play that you would really like to do someday?
Oh, wow. I don't have one. I don't have one, and I couldn't think on the spot that quickly. I will say that I am a dreamer, and this is where Audrey and I love working together. I dream. I can go here, and then I bring it down based on reality. But to me, this is what we go for. So I dream. I don't dream for us to be big. That has never been Jewish Theater Bloomington. We're not have any intention to be Constellation. We have no intention of being something unbelievably big, but to grow, to be better and better and better, and include more and more, and be able to be solid and do compelling theater. I love that. There's many plays in many ways. I'd love to do radio theater. I'd love to, there's just so much, but I don't have one play. Thank you. I guess I don't like being put on the spot. I don't know.
So Darrell, I'm on the Constellation Board. And one of the things we talk about is growing the audience, right? And,
Yes.
and how do we get out into other areas and create awareness, drive awareness? Because if you look around, we go to Eclipse, we go to all the other theaters, but you see the same people, which is great because there's wonderful support.
Yeah.
But I don't know that anyone has done a great job of reaching new audiences.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of talent with the training and education options that are out there. But again, I don't feel like we've really tapped it. Is that something you all are working at? And is that something, I'm loving hearing about the collaboration because I think that's critical.
Sure.
Is that something that could be collaborated on as well?
Absolutely. It's always been in our strategic plan, actually, to build audiences and make them more diverse. It's actually literally part of our mission to build diverse audiences of Jews and non-Jews. It takes more staff. So Constellation, you have a lot of staff and it's hard for you. You can imagine we have 3 staff. I'm staff producing artistic director. I have a managing director who's part-time hourly, an administrative assistant, and honest to God, we're full-time. That's all there is to it. So if we had more, the vision has always been there to go out into schools, to go out into counties. I was part of a children's theater company that Marcia Sabalska had, and we did tours in the state of Indiana. And that was one of the things we did is we toured the counties and we went to schools to get to them, to bring the theater to them. Absolutely a dream that we have to build audiences. I've been working on, because we're the only Jewish theater in the state, I've worked on connecting to other Jewish communities, not people who are Jewish, but by nature, towns are insular because we're all kind of surviving right now. Okay, we're surviving financially, we're surviving politically, we're just kind of staying. So to move on out costs money to go somewhere to do that. I went up to Candles Museum recently. I went up into Terre Haute and made some connections there. Will they come down and see our shows? I don't know. I was hoping maybe they'd want to be in the program for free and we'd exchange something because it's important. So building audience is important. Personally, it's going to take more staff for us to be able to do that. And that is a goal of mine someday. But we're running in place 100 hours a week. I'm exaggerating. So it's important. And I believe it is essential for anybody's mission. Nobody, I don't believe, should stay one audience. That doesn't make sense. One of the things I'm most proud of is our audiences are so big. And I mean, they're big, they're tiny, but they're sold out and we're packed. And they're not all preaching to the choir. They're not. I mean, people have never seen a Jewish theater show, maybe know someone Jewish, maybe don't, maybe they are Jewish. How cool is that? That we all come together and look at this together, what it's like to be a person that might not be majority, that might have a storyline where the character is experiencing anti-Semitism, or the character just is rich with who they are, and people in the audience are like, wow, I never thought about that before. Sometimes it's the playwright who's Jewish and they wrote a play about their grandmother, but there's nothing in the play that says she's Jewish, that we do that. Other times we've done plays about the Holocaust, not the Holocaust itself, but about a family story where someone had memories of being in the Holocaust or hiding in the spotlight. And then most of our plays are somewhere in between. So there's a little of this, a little of that, a lot of that. I think that's the beauty of it. Kind of went off on a tangent.
Hi, you've touched on a lot of these issues, but one of the things which you mentioned, I always think about Bloomington as a community writ large.
Yes.
And we sometimes make this distinction between what happens in the Bloomington community away from IU, and then, as you mentioned, the connections that you have with IU. Do you have, there are 47,000 students on campus. Do you have any activity related to students on campus?
Yes. Well, specifically through the Jewish Studies program, through the theater department, we'll go to their student fairs and do our plays and talk about it with them and go and speak to them in that way. In the past, and I hope in the future, we have reached out to sororities that are typically membership or people who are mostly Jewish and done with that. Hillel, I used to do all my rehearsals at Hillel for a long time, worked with them. So again, with the Jewish identity, it's very challenging. And as someone who worked here and knows this office really well, you can't just rent a room and be here on campus unless you're associated with it. So we have to find that be able to do that. But speaking to students, kind of interesting timing, but we always would use the IDS and they would be able to report and so forth. But yes, that's very important. What you bring up, I think, is the age-old, since I've been here, challenge. It's the university, which often felt like the Soviet Union when you're over here, right? You couldn't even literally be allowed to drive in. And then when you're over here, you don't think about the community as the stereotype, right? So a lot of my work in service learning over the years and in all kinds of social work is to bring the communities together. So we work on that. Absolutely not enough. We're not quite there yet, but you bring up an important thing. They're a huge part of who we are. I'm meeting this week for coffee with a student who found out that there's a Jewish theater and she got so excited. She wants to meet with me over coffee because she's done some theater before. So I love that. Yeah. Thank you.
So I saw you brought some flyers in the back. Can you tell us a little bit about your next show?
Next show is The Price by Arthur Miller. Surely you've heard of Arthur Miller. We don't often do like the big hits, but we did this show in another year and it was very exciting and well received. So we decided to do it again for our 20th anniversary. It is directed by Dale McFadden, who is the former chair of the theater department on campus and acting instructor. He's great. We've worked with him many years. So some of these actors wanted to work with Dale. Right. The leads are Jonathan Golembiecki, who's acted for us. He's a community actor for many years, off and on. And then Abby Lee is out of Chicago. She's an equity actor, and she got her MFA here. She loves Dale. And Stephen Hunt is an actor, also equity out of Indianapolis. And then Ken Farrell, who's just amazing. Ken and I have been in plays together several times. He's amazing, and he's in it as well. So we're really excited. It's in November. I don't have the dates memorized, but it's back up through here. A few weeks we open. Get online. Anything you want to know should be on our website, but if it isn't, please email me. I'd love to hear from you. I would love to see you at a show. If you have any other questions that weren't answered here, email me. I love to talk, and I love to listen. So I'm a social worker, so I can kick into that quickly. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Show will be opening, The Price opening on November 6th. Darrell Ann, thank you for a most interesting presentation. In honor of your talk, a donation will be made this quarter to the Lake Monroe Water Fund. I'd like to thank all the club member volunteers who helped today. Marilyn Wood, Tracy Ivanovich, Lynn Schwartzberg, Leslie Kutsenko, Sally Gaskell, Judy Schroeder, Michael Shermis, Dave Meyer, Sarah Laughlin. Next meeting will be on October 28th. We'll be back upstairs in the Georgian room. Mary Morgan's talk is titled Radical Optimism, Ending Homelessness One Neighbor at a Time. Should be interesting. Please join us. And Tyler, if you would share the graphic for the four-way test, and please stand if you are able and join me. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?